Hey guys, in this video I'll share top 3 Space Marine winning lists from recent tournaments, how we can use these guys' victories to improve our lists and win more games. So without further ado, let's dive right in. As always, I was looking for the most interesting ones, and I have a very cool Blood Angels list, a Deathwatch, and an Ultramarines one, so stay tuned. And we'll start with my favorite Deathwatch, the very first faction that I've ever started collecting, and this one took second place at a 72-player 6-round Grand Tournament in Texas in the United States on April 26th, and that was a list by someone named Primaris Tex, which I assume it's not a real name, but you never know. And this is obviously a Black Spear task force, as we like to see. We don't like Gladius Deathwatch lists on this channel. At least I've not seen one that I would like yet. This one is not your typical Black Spear task force. I've never seen this build yet before, and that's why I decided to show it to you. It starts pretty normal with a Captain and Gravis armor with a Thief of Secrets. As I said before, Thief of Secrets is probably the most powerful melee enhancement in the whole game, so you want to run it. No matter what you do, you must have a character with this thing. It's worth it so much that it's a mistake not to have it, in my opinion. Obviously, Captain Gravis Armor is going to be leading some sort of Indomitor kill team, which we have 2 of them here, so one of them is going to be led by this chunky boy. Next character is Chaplain with a Beacon Angelus. So Beacon Angelus is the one that gives his squad deep strike and also allows you to rapid ingress for 0 CP once per game. So I assume, and we assume, that this character is going to be leading a kill team, one of many here that he can lead, and that kill team is going to be obviously in reserves, waiting to be rapid ingressed at some point, and it will have to be from turn 2 normally, not like one of those enhancements that allows you to do it early. This one is just giving you deep strike and a free rapid ingress, nothing more. So now with the combi weapon, I'm glad to see this guy here. It seems that more and more people realize how awesome this lone up is and how useful he is specifically for such a low unit count army as Deathwatch, because as you can see, we don't have a lot of units here, and that's one of the problems that lists like this are gonna have, is being activation locked. So essentially, like, if you want to score and if you want to kill stuff, very often you will only have, well, always you will have a finite amount of activations. So when you make a unit do something, and the number of those will depend on exactly how many units you have. So your unit can be very strong, very durable, can kill like a knight with a blink, but if it's only one unit, it will still be under the same restrictions, for example, that it cannot do an action and do the shooting killing at the same time. So that's why it's so important to invest into those cheap and still very versatile units that can do actions for us. This is true for any list, but specifically for those that rely on big, expensive infantry squads like Deathwatch do now. And we have a Watchmaster with the Tome of Acticlades. Again, I am not the biggest fan of the Tome of Acticlades because, first of all, I remember how awesome it used to be back in the day, and now it's a second oath, so once per game you'll be able to nominate another target for full rolls to hit. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, it's a very useful thing, but if I had a choice to add, for example, another squad of like to score, for example, I would probably do that instead of giving this enhancement to my character. So it's not a mandatory one, that's what I'm trying to say. At least that's my opinion. However, a lot of the competitive guys use it, so it's still a good enhancement. This Watchmaster, if I understand correctly, is leading a 10-man unit of Deathwatch veterans. At least that would make sense to me, as his advance and shoot, advance and charge, fall back and shoot, fall back and charge ability really makes sense on a unit that can do melee well, and who, if not a unit with 4 heavy Deathwatch Thunderhammers, can do melee well. This one is just a strictly melee unit, so it's not trying to do 2 things at once. It's just shields and power swords and Thunderhammers and like Xenophase blades, and that's it. As I mentioned before, I think that this unit should be inside a Rhino, because at least to me that would make more sense. You would get extra 3 inches on the disembark, you get the protection from the Rhino, which is cheap as dirt, and Deathwatch are actually one of few Space Marine chapters that actually get to use the incredible versatility of a Rhino, because nowadays most Space Marines, their actual melee units are already Primaris sized, so they cannot fit into the Rhino. However, Deathwatch still rely on our small baby Deathwatch veterans that can fit like 10 guys inside this small thing. And you get the extra 3 inches, you get the protection, you also get to advance and charge out of the Rhino thanks to Watchmaster. So what not to love? At least that's my opinion. I would always run the squad with the transport, but there is a way to run them without. You just need to do more to protect them whilst you're staging them and preparing to actually unleash them onto your enemy. 5-man Intercessor squad, that is obviously a unit to hold the home objective here, just sticking the home objective and potentially maybe somewhere closer to the middle of the game, coming out and getting to another objective if the home objective is not under threat of enemy deep strike or teleportation, which for some lists that is true. Some lists just don't have any way to get far across the board and pop up somewhere. We have 2x5 JPI squads. I'm glad to see this here again because Deathwatch very often have the problem of activation lock, and here we see at least the combo weapon lieutenant. We have 2x5 JPI squads, so that's 3 scoring only units. Well, only in the case of JPI is not true because they're also skirmish, but I can like to consider them both recon and skirmish roles for any list that I run specifically, and the 5 intercessors. So that's 4 scoring choices. Ideally, my sort of go-to number in this case, and that is including the skirmishing units and the unit for the home objective, is 5. So that's what I try to achieve whenever I'm building a list. Anything more than that very often is redundant. Anything less, you are in this danger zone of sometimes not having enough stuff to do actions and score whilst you are still efficient in destroying your enemy's force. Nice to see that sergeants did not have the plasma pistols. Maybe that was just a mistake in the roster, but usually you would run plasmas on them because you can just not overcharge and have a essentially better pistol apart from the range 12 versus 18 on the heavy bolt. And finally, we come to the part of the roster that I was not expecting to see, and that is 3 40 skill teams. 3 essentially 10-man squads of intercessors / Isolation Marines, which we have 2 of them here in each of the units, and 4 Hellblasters. So it's 4 plasmas, 2 super crack missile launchers, and a bunch of better than normal Deathwatch bolt rifles. So they are higher strength, they have lethal hits, and they're generally speaking better than the normal bolt rifle. What I love seeing here is that despite only 3 intercessors being required in the skill team structure, the Primaris text actually has 4 of them. So that's a great example of when GW gave us actually good rules. So the Deathwatch bolt rifle is 2 shots, it's strength 5, AP2, damage 1, 24-inch range, and assault heavy and lethal hits. So it does have lethal hits in addition to the extra strength and the AP, because if I remember correctly, the normal bolt rifle is only AP1. Instead of going with the already well-known option of the Deathwatch Terminators, which are very versatile, durable, etc., but more expensive, Primaris chose the more shooty, almost completely not melee option of the 40 skill team, which I think is a very undervalued option for kill teams because of its very low cost. Only 20 points per model for a kill team model, which gets all the benefits, all the stratagems, and generally speaking, improved output compared to normal units. I think it's a very good deal. I'm not sure if I would completely alleviate all the Deathwatch Terminators out of my version of the list, but I really think that more people should try using these guys. And of course, we finish off strong with the 2 Indomitor kill teams, 3 Eradicators, 3 Aggressors in each, and the rest are the normal heavy intercessors with the special rifles. In this list now, I think that the Watchmaster probably is joining one of the 40th skill teams instead, and the Chaplain is going to be with the Deathwatch veterans, and then it makes sense for it not to have the Rhino because you are going to put them in deep strike anyways. It's just I like the idea of the Watchmaster with the Deathwatch veterans so much that I immediately interpreted this as that, and just ignore the Chaplain, who obviously doesn't want to join the 40th skill team because they don't really need the +1 to wound. So Watchmaster with the 40 skill team is not a bad idea because he gives them the advance and shoot, fall back and charge, fall back and shoot, fall back and charge, not as relevant for them, but still useful. So a really good list. I would honestly personally just add the 1 extra scoring unit here, and potentially, depending on how the 40 skill teams perform, potentially change them, like maybe one of them into a Deathwatch Terminators unit instead, because I'm not sure how much better they are compared to the Terminators. But all in all, this is a very deserved second place and a very interesting list. I would really love to see how it performed. It did lose to the Orc Warhorde list in the finals, and I assume this was because of the activation lock, because when the Orcs start coming closer and closing the distance, sometimes army like this one that likes to jump around and shoot just doesn't have any space to jump around on the board anymore, and that's where you really start getting into the problematic situation. So that's why this current iteration of Deathwatch is not my favorite. I like a more like a ground-based Deathwatch, which doesn't need to jump around that much. But other than that, it's an amazing list. Great job, Primaris. And yeah, we're gonna go to the next one. As always, I want to remind you about my Patreon 40K coaching service. If you're looking for help building your competitive rosters, preparing you for tournaments, or have any questions about your collection in general, check out the links for my Patreon in the description. Thank you. The second list is Blood Angels Liberator Assault Group by Joel Rodgers, who took the second place undefeated at a 79-player 5-round grand tournament in the United States. And here we see already a pretty familiar theme of a bunch of Blade Guard veterans, and I'm glad that people are starting to pick up on how cheap these are and how efficient they are, specifically in the Liberator Assault Group, where the biggest problem of the Blade Guard is solved, which is the low strength on their power swords. I looked at a pretty similar list last time, but that one had a shit ton of Jump Back Marines, the JPI. Here we have a crazy amount of Sanguinary Guard instead, so that's what? 15 Sanguinary Guard. That's just amazing. It's 3 shy of the maximum that you can have like in the list. This is essentially a stage and go kind of a roster. So we have 2 Vindicators to provide us with at least some shooting. It's sort of like the Forge Fiends for the World Eaters. They're there to just scare you shitless for being potentially shot by them, but not always to actually do that, because you might be dead by the time they roll around the corner and try to even find the target, because the World Eaters have already gotten to you. In this case, the Blood Angels have already gotten to you, but to be honest, both are red, both are angry, and yeah, what is the real difference there? The captain with Jump Back, who's going to be leading, I assume, one of the Sanguinary Guard squads. He technically can lead the JPI as well, but obviously he's going to lead the Sanguinary Guard, I assume the 6-man squad. And he has the speed of the Primarch, so it's a 1 per game fights first enhancement. Very useful to stage them and be safe from potential counter charges. 2x5 Assault and Recesses, so they might be, one of them might be on the home objective duty, but probably how I would use them, I would just send them as another skirmish piece, because they are really, really amazing in lag. A Liberator Assault Group, because of the extra strength, and the full reroll stone they get on the objective means that they can punch up into pretty much anything. The only limiting factor in their case would be the low AP, which lag doesn't have a way to modify. Home objective duty is probably going to be under the scouts, and yeah, they probably will feel very comfortable just staying there the home game. And a 1 impulsor with what surprised me, a comms aura. And I've never seen that used before, to be honest. It's a 6-inch aura of, on a 5-up, if the Adeptus Astartes unit within 6 of the Impulsor uses a stratagem, you get the CP back, 1 CP back. I'm not sure why exactly this is the case here instead of the Shield Dome, which is the traditional choice. I assume it's because Blood Angels are very CP hungry, and potentially the idea is to stage that Impulsor somewhere and then use it as this sort of CP generator once you start popping all the stratagems, which probably means that the Impulsor will need to follow whatever melee squad is going to charge, is going to follow them, because this is only a 6-inch aura. So very interesting, not really sure about this choice, but yeah, definitely something unusual. 2x5 JP, I already discussed them. They are probably one of the best skirmish pieces in the game in the Liberator Assault Group, because just how much damage they can do for their cost is incredible. They can punch up into pretty much anything, considering their potential for mortal wounds on the charge and the potential for the grenade, and obviously their attacks. 6 Blade Guard veterans. This one probably is going into the Impulsor, most likely with the Judiciary to give them fights first. 2x3 Blade Guard veterans, so very cheap against skirmishy unit that you can just either put in reserves and use like that, or just send them up the board to be very annoying and very, very unpleasant to deal with. And then 15 Sanguinary Guard. We've already discussed this part, so they all have the Incarmine Blades. which is obviously the better choice, and the appropriate amount of Inferno pistols with a banner in each unit. Scouts and the 2 Vindicators. So a very, very interesting list. I honestly, the only problem I have with it is that I would have 3 Vindicators, but you know me, I like to have a bit more shooting even when I'm running a predominantly melee list, because I feel like if you're already investing into tanks, you might as well have the full complement. But other than that, this is a beautiful list. Okay, maybe I would also add another squad to score, because it feels like just a bit tighter than I would want, even though, yes, I assume the 3-man Bladeguard veteran squad are not going to be always doing fighting. They're probably going to be mostly doing actions, and then potentially closer to the middle or the end of the game, fighting whatever survived all the other Blood Angels units that ripped and smashed everything in their way. This is a really, really beautifully crafted list. I am glad to see the Sanguinary Guard here, because the previous one we looked at was a Bloodless Angels, kind of a Liberator Assault group list, and I'm happy to see this one have actually some classic Blood Angels choices, especially the new Sanguinary Guard, even though I didn't really like how they look. But if you know how to convert models, they can be really amazing. Or if you buy a third-party one, that also works. I personally have 6 Sanguinary Guard that are absolutely like third-party, and they look amazing in my opinion. The picture is on the screen. Definitely a great result by Joel, and we continue to the number 1, which last time I said there are going to be no Ultramarines lists, and this time we must have an Ultramarines list, because let's be honest, there's a backlog of those. This one is by Jerry Zhang, who took the first place at a 33-player 5-round Grand Tournament in Kowloon in Hong Kong on April 26th, 2025. And again, sorry if I'm torturing any of the names. This one's pretty standard for a Gladius Ultramarines list, with a few interesting details that sparked my curiosity. First one is, it has Captain Gravis armor with Artificer armor, which is a 2+ armor save, 5+ Philippine enhancement, who has no one to lead, which means that he's going to be used as a pseudo lone up, so not an actual lone up, but a character that's going to just go around alone. And he's such a tough unit that he doesn't really need that protection, because whatever shoots at him is going to have a hard time bringing him down. Very unusual choice, but still, I think it's pretty fun, and I honestly love the Captain Gravis armor model. He's a very beautiful model, especially the old 8th edition one, as his sword raised up. So I fully endorse this choice. What I don't necessarily endorse is Marnius Calgar with 2 Victrix Guard, because I don't think that this is an efficient choice, especially if you run him with just company heroes. You're paying a lot of points for Marnius and his ability, and you're not really giving that ability to anything that is worthwhile. Company heroes are a cool unit, but they're not going to do enough to actually justify, in my opinion, this points expense. It's still a powerful choice, don't get me wrong. It's just something that I personally wouldn't recommend. And Roboto Guilliman, talking about things I would recommend, run this guy in every Ultramarines list. He's just absolutely amazing. I'm not sure why they didn't nerf him. Probably because he costs like an arm and a leg, but still, it's yeah, he's amazing. Whenever I'm playing Marines that are not Ultramarines, I feel like I'm naked and I don't have any like tools to play with, because not having that second oath and the extra CP just feels wrong. Imagine it feels wrong to my opponents as well when I'm using it against them. And we have 5 intercessors doing home objective duty, nothing to talk about here. Power Fist, Bolt Rifle, Grenade Launcher on the Sergeant, normal stuff. 5 jump back intercessors with the Power Fist on the Sergeant and a Plasma Pistol this time. 2 Ballistas Dreadnoughts, the 4 company heroes that are going to be with Marnius Calgar. Gladiator Reaper, so for now our shooting firing base is 2 Ballistas Dreadnoughts and Gladiator Reaper. Pretty interesting, not very unusual, but not also typical as well. 5 Incurses. I love Incurses because the mine really allows you to do some unusual amount of mortal wounds whenever you're close to vehicles, so you can throw a grenade and then do the Hero Wire Mine, which on average will be like 7 mortal wounds, not bad for an 80-point squad. They also give +1 to hit whenever they shoot at something, so for a list that has a lot of shooting, and any Ultramarines list should have a lot of shooting, this is going to be very efficient as a scoring unit that can also buff. Talking about scoring units, Invader ATVs, we have 2 of them here. They are amazing, extremely efficient, very cheap, not really nice to deal with because they're just They have more wounds and higher toughness and better save than you would expect for this cost. A 5-man squad of scouts, just scouts to do actions, nothing to worry about here. And 2 Vindicators. So the actual shooting base for this roster is 2 Ballistas Dreadnoughts, 2 Vindicators, and a Gladiator Reaper. This is enough, in my opinion. This is a good starting point. What I think is lacking here is honestly 6-man or 2x3-man Inceptor squads with plasmas, because I feel like those are mandatory in any Ultramarines list. I've played Guilliman Ultramarines Gladius many times at tournaments, and MVP of every single game almost always were the Inceptors, because they can just appear where your opponent is not expecting them to appear and destroy stuff. Because with +1 to wound, 4 rerolls to hit, 4 rerolls to wound for an elf target, they're just deleting stuff, and the stuff that is like, it can be almost anything. There is no really good defense against strength 8, AP 3, damage 3 that can also ignore cover with 4 rerolls to hit, 4 rerolls to wound, and +1 to wound. And the like 12 shots that you get from 6 dudes. There's nothing good against that, and that's what I love about them. And this is probably my biggest concern about this particular roster, is the lack of this choice. Obviously, this is enough firepower to do a lot of damage, but firepower is only as good as where it can be applied, and that's what Inceptors really help with. They help to apply it somewhere where your opponent doesn't expect you to. What I really like about this list, though, is the fact that it definitely is following and like even overdoing the part of the roster that is the scoring, because you have like actually 6 scoring choices here. The Intercessors, the JPI, so that's 2, the Incursors 3, 2 Invader ATVs 4, and the Scouts 6, well, 4, 5, 6, with the Scouts and the 2 Invader ATVs. And you can also probably count the company heroes with the Marnius Color Guard as sort of pseudo scoring choice for like the first turn where they are staging, but I don't like to count like this, because I only count the units that are not used for damage dealing most of the game. So otherwise, you can just say, oh, well, my Deathwing Knights are going to be doing scoring for me, which no, they're not. They're going to be staging. They're going to be somewhere where you are not necessarily in a position to score. You're in a position to potentially destroy your opponent's units. And that's what they need to be worried about, that, because that's why they cost so much. Everyone needs to be doing their own job. So yeah, amazing result by Jerry. Great list. I would honestly feel more than comfortable playing this instead of my competitive list. I like mine more just because of these several things that I mentioned, but this one is really, really good and great result. Congratulations, and let me know what you think about this top 3. What was your favorite list? If you feel like I've misjudged something, definitely do let me know, because I don't know what these guys think about. That's just my interpretation of their list, how I would perceive it if I was their opponent. If I, before the round started, I looked at their roster and like, this is what I would think. And yeah, if you have a different opinion, do let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.